Oh, YouTube. Well, today I'm in Medicine Lodge, Kansas, at the home of Carrie Nation. And she's the driving force behind Prohibition, so let's go inside and take a look at her home. So this is, I'm gonna guess, probably life-size portrait, maybe a little bigger, of Carrie. She was born, Carrie Amelia Moore, on November 25th, 1846 in Kentucky. And when she was raised in a deeply religious household, which came from her father and the family's slaves. And she married David Nation in December 30th, 1874, and moved around. Well, they ended up here in Medicine Lodge. He was a preacher, and she was the organist in the church. And when he died of alcohol-related illnesses, she left the church, and by 1900, believing she was sent by God, she loaded a buggy with stones and bricks and drove to Kiowa, Kansas to smash saloons. She proclaimed, "You wouldn't give me a vote, so I used a rock." Now in the home, there's some things that did belong to her, like this desk. And out here in the hall is the entranceway is a nice display of some of things that were owned by her. There's a tiny little Bible up here. And this is a hatchet presented by Carrie Nation to Reverend Charles Dillsworth at the Curtis Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia. And this valise is what she used to carry her hatchet and her stones. And she did get arrested a number of times. And these little hatchet pins, they would sell them to, the women would sell those to raise bail. So one of the big reasons that Carrie was against alcohol, not only was her first husband had died from it, but she'd seen the abuse that was caused and some of the things that she did. She raised money to build houses like this one, and here's another shot of the same place, that were homes for women to getting away from abusive relationships. And you know, you always see pictures of Carrie looking like she's really pissed off. But here's one of her with her nephew, and she's giving him a little taste of ice cream. So she just sort of looks like, you know, your crazy aunt. So this beautiful bed was David and Carrie Nation's, and over here was her dresser with a strange little Carrie Nation doll. And next to the bed is her sewing box and a set of her glasses. So here's a banner carried by Hattie Alexander when they were marching for Prohibition. And it's like, what do you have, boys? Debauchery, ruin, misery, despair, death, poverty, disgrace, madness, disease, damnation. So this is Carrie when she was younger, and David Nation, her husband. And Carrie did travel the world. Here she is aboard an Anchor Line steamship, headed to a temperance campaigns in Dundee, Aberdeen, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Scotland, and London, England. This is a bar in Wichita, Kansas, after one of her smashings where she went in and did just smash up the bar. She smashed up all the supplies. And was in that building, which is still standing. And surprisingly, that was called the Carrie Bar. Wonder if that had anything to do with it. And the pictures of her in prison, she would not allow them unless she was had her Bible and was kneeling in prayer. Yeah, and here's what it looked like in a bar in Enterprise, Kansas. After one of her smashings, like I said, she smashed up all of their liquor. And this is the marshal leading her to jail. And with that, I think I'm going to say goodbye to Carrie, and hopefully you picked up a little something. If you ever get a chance and you're in Medicine Lodge, Kansas, stop in. Next door to Carrie Nation's house is the Medicine Lodge Stockade, which is this here. This is a reproduction, and you can tell by all the fresh timbers and stuff. They are going through some renovations this year. Whoops, big step. The original stockade was built around where downtown is, and it enclosed 6 city blocks. It was made to protect all of the settlers in the area. So once it was completed, all of the families moved into the stockade, lived inside of it, and the men would go out and tend the fields and the crops and their stock during the day, and then be protected at night. It was built to protect the people from the Native Americans. It is the only one in the West built like this, contrary to what every Western you've ever seen. Most of the forts in the West were pretty much wide open, did not have the big board log fences around. So there's not a whole lot in this stockade, but we're going to take a look, and then we're going to look inside the museum. There's a lot of artifacts from different eras in there. So let's go take a look. So this is the old jail that was installed in the basement of the courthouse in 1886, and they had a couple of cells with 4 bunks in each cell, and the way this was set up is that the jailer could lock the prisoners in and then come out, lock the outer door, and then by pulling a lever outside, it would open up the inner doors so that the prisoners could come out into this passageway. And when they finally got running water in town, they installed a basin and a tub like this one, having you see through, and in one of the cells. And it said that when the last 2 guys that were locked up in here got really bored, so one took and bathed the other one in the tub, and the next day the guy who had taken the bath died. The doctor said it was pneumonia, but the old timers around here said it was shock, as he'd never had a bath before. So on the grounds of the Stockade Museum, they've got a log cabin, a reproduction, I believe. It could have been moved here, I'm not sure, but they're having a little problem with wasps inside, so right now they've got it locked up, and I think we've all seen the insides of cabins before, so no real reason to go in and check this one out, but it's a nice one. Every couple of years, they have a big celebration in this town The next one is going to be in 2020, and it's a huge celebration celebrating the signing of a peace treaty between a number of tribes and the white settlers. And they tell me that the parade lasts for at least an hour. There's people from all over, vendors from all over, as well as reenactors, and the Stockade here does play a big part in that. So if you happen to be thinking about traveling near Medicine Lodge, Kansas in 2020, take a look, find out when they're doing the celebration, and you may want to come then. Or if you want to avoid the crowds, come at a different time. So inside the main building is a very eclectic collection. Everything from beauty supplies to a collection of firearms, as well as a picture of the bank robbers of the Medicine Lodge Bank in 1884. John Wesley, Henry Newton Brown, Billy Smith, and Ben Wheeler. Brown was shot when he was trying to escape, and the other three were hung by the citizens. Here's something you don't see too often. This was to put over the backs of your draft horses and keep the flies away, keep them from bothering them. When my wife and I bought our small farm, there was a set of these, but they were pretty much trampled in the old garage that had collapsed down in and weren't worth anything. You just barely tell what they were. And this photograph is of the Indian Peace Treaty celebration in 1927, celebrating the 60th anniversary. There's an ancient torture device. Actually, it's a 1930s hair permanent machine. You can imagine sitting underneath this thing. But then that's probably how they got all those tight little curls back in the 30s. Now I've seen and actually owned a coffee grinder like that, which is great for when the power goes off and your wife wants coffee. What I don't understand is a raisin grinder, which is what that is. Why I want to grind raisins?